Welcome back to the podcast. We had way too much fun doing the sponsor fishbowl spinner last time. So we thought, you know what, let's run it back. Let's do a negotiation role play.
I like it.
What do you think?
I like it a lot.
This was
the best part of sponsor games.
It actually was the best part of sponsor games.
Yes.
I was trying to be like, hey guys, no one wants to go on a break right now. Let's keep doing a role play, right?
You want to do more of these role plays?
So we just Joe just vibe coded up another game for us to play.
Yeah.
And so the premise of today's game is that we are going to click a button, get a random word from a brand of something they'd say during a phone call or negotiation, and then you've got 60 seconds to figure out how to respond, right?
Yeah. It's going to be like a full sentence. Let's say something, and we've got to respond to it.
All right, let's go.
Ready?
I'll be the first victim.
All right.
First line is, we are looking for micro-influencers with higher engagement than you. All right. Oh, man, right to the core.
I know.
So I understand that, you know, influencers, working with micro influencers has been your strategy to date. And, you know, though you may have worked with ones that, you know, maybe had higher engagement than me, I'm curious if you might be able to talk a little bit about what your objectives are when you collaborate with creators. You know, again, I understand that, you know, a high engagement rate is a metric that you may have used in the past to figure out whether a campaign was successful. But I'm curious, are you primarily looking for awareness when it comes to those campaigns? Are you getting these micro influencers assets to repurpose, to, you know, put on your website or use for paid advertising, things like that? Or are you really looking for them to drive conversions? This is where I usually like to start with these types of conversations to ensure that whatever I recommend to you best helps you accomplish those outcomes.
Nice. Good job. I mean, this is a really important thing that we need to figure out during negotiation, right? Because I think something that we see a lot is, well, what's just like templated packages I could send brands, right? And we try to really drive home the point that you are sending, even if you have your own price sheet or your own list of deliverables, you want to customize this, right? I used to make websites, but if a nonprofit came to me, I'd still give them a website. It would be very different from than if an e-commerce company came to me, right? And so you need to tailor your packages and your pitch to the goals of the brand. And so figuring out why is really important here, instead of just going like, oh, well, you know, I'll come back to you when I have a bigger audience.
There's a chapter in my book sponsor Magnet that is called, or a section called Pivot What You Propose Based on What You Learn from the Brand. And this is like a very big insight, which is I think a lot of creators are nervous to do this, where a brand is asking for one thing. And so who am I to be like, actually, I don't think that's what you want.
Yeah.
I actually think you should be doing this instead. But in reality, a lot of times brands don't know really what they're doing. This seems weird, but like they're coming to you, they have money. Like, of course the brand knows what they're doing, right? They've got the marketing team, they've got the agency, but in fact, in reality, a lot of times they don't. And so it's actually you leaning into your own expertise and being like, look, I've actually done this quite a few times, and here is what I think would be a better approach. And so what I said, I did stumble a little bit, you know, at the beginning, but what I really, the most important pivot, if a brand ever says like, you suck, your metric sucks, like, you know, people that we've worked with in the past have been cheaper or get more views or get more engagement. Always, instead of getting insulted and being like, how dare you, who are you, is helping them meet them where they're at. Be like, okay, that's what they've done to date. Fine. Like, I'm glad that that's worked for you before. Here's why I'm different. And like leaning into that, being more confident about what you do bring to the table can be a game changer.
Yeah, I think it's. I'll just add here that like, it's possible, even likely, that the person you're talking to was just told by the higher ups, "Hey, we want to do influencer marketing. Here's your budget," and then they go, "Oh, well, what does that look like for our competitors, right?" And you want to help them stand out, and it is being a partner or being a consultant to them, which is how we try to position ourselves, is pushing back and saying like, "Hey, this is why Instagram Reels might not work for you."
Dude, this is crazy that I'm about to say this, but I ran an influencer agency for 7 years, so I can say this with authority, that like the example you just shared of like some higher ups that told the marketing manager or something, hey, we need to be doing influencer marketing. That person has no training in influencer marketing. They've never done it before. They may be simply just Googling influencer marketing best practices, and they're like, when you work with Instagram influencers, make sure they have engagement rate of more than 2.5% or 3%. And like literally that now becomes their standard of like how they're doing it. And so you may be the first person that would be like, oh, like why is like 2.5% like an important metric to you? And then I'll be like, you know, and then their brain will like turn on, you know, they'll like circle like exorcism, you know, type of thing. Their brain will fry, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So be confident.
Yes.
All right, Joe, you're up.
I'm also just gonna say here, right, that like you said you stumbled in the beginning.
Yeah.
Neither of us have any idea what. I didn't read the lines before I launched.
No, we did. We have no idea what it's gonna say.
What they're saying. Yeah. This is really important. We didn't prep. So, all right. What's your CPM again?
Ooh,
this is like a layup for me. Yeah. So you know, I don't price based on CPM. What I'm really focused on is figuring out what your goals are and helping you achieve your goals. And that's really best done if we don't focus more on downloads, but outcomes. So I might have a smaller audience than, say, the Joe Rogan podcast, but I have a really engaged, really interested audience, and I'm keen to work with you to really deliver on your goals. If you want people to understand more about your product, I can walk them through it. If you are interested in repurposing some of the things I say, these are really valuable things that just can't be measured by CPM. So I'd love to know what budget range you have, and then I can come up with packages at various investment levels that will help you achieve your goals and really make this a win for you, for me, and for the audience.
That was really smooth. It was almost like you're a sponsorship coach or something.
Hey, how about that, right? It's almost like I get asked this all the time.
Question for you. We hear this a lot in podcasting, but also like YouTube, CPV, you know, is like another metric that sometimes brands will track.
CPM, if you don't know, means cost per million. It's basically like the dollar amount per 1,000 downloads. So a $20 CPM is $20 per 1,000 downloads. Right. If you have 2,000 downloads, you get $40.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said. You know, I may not be as large as like the Joe Rogan podcast or something. We hear this a lot where it's like brands will have unrealistic expectations. Either the brand will say this, or you feel sheepish in your own mind that like, I don't have a big podcast. I don't get a lot of download numbers. And so you use that in your own head to not be confident about your own worth and not advocate for yourself. And I think it's important to not lead the witness here. Just because you don't have a huge amount of subscribers. Like we see this actually a lot. I think we have like a disproportionate number of people in our coaching program that are niche creators, niche businesses. They may not even call themselves creators actually.
Right.
And they're crushing it with brand partnerships, and they're not using CPM.
Right.
They're not pricing it based on that, because literally they may be only getting a couple hundred you know, only a couple hundred downloads or views per episode or YouTube video, but they're crushing it with brand partnerships because, you know, they're in the medical space, or, you know, they're like in medical devices, or they're in some sort of niche, like, you know, they serve accounting firms, or like, we have a lot of very interesting examples of creators who are doing really, really well. But it took even them unlearning this idea about, like, you know, realizing that brand partnerships can be meaningful even if they don't have a lot of downloads.
Yeah. And from an industry standpoint, like, especially with podcast downloads, those are becoming increasingly less relevant. And so more creators and brands are going to start thinking about what is the metric if downloads are not a reasonable thing to consider.
I mean,
a reliable thing.
The reason that it's actually way more important even now is that it is trivial to illegally or fraudulently purchase engagement. Right. Yeah. Because a lot of time, for a long time, brands would look at a follower count on a social media platform as a proxy for influence. Yeah. Oh, that person has 100,000 followers or subscribers, or, you know, whatever. But like, probably anyone listening or watching to this knows that, like, you get messages all the time from people being like, oh, I'll get you 5,000 followers for $50 or whatever. So like, this is like pervasive that like you can illegally purchase bot engagement or followers or whatever. And so brands are increasingly becoming wise to this fact that, like, you know, you have to look beyond just the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next line.
All right, next
My turn.
one. Yes.
How about we start with a one post test? Dude, these are good questions.
Yeah, these are.
How about we start with a one post test? You know, I understand that perhaps in the past you may have had some challenging relationships with other creators who, you know, you signed a long-term deal with them, but, you know, it didn't work out. And so you feel like you want to do more kind of trial posts now. But what I'm actually proposing, the reason that we actually need to do multiple posts is a couple things. Number one, we need to test the messaging. We need to understand what is actually resonating with my audience the most. There might be certain objections that resonate over others that drive more trial signups for your software program. That's number one. Number two, there may be insights that we glean from those first activations. People are saying in the comments, or people are replying to these emails that like, oh, I've tried this software. Here's why I didn't purchase it. We need to be using those insights in the next iteration of content. And so oftentimes one post is not a large enough sample to determine whether the partnership's actually successful. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, great. I love that you start. I would have just started off with like, it really takes people 7 times for a message to stick, right? But that's just like a rote stat. You actually came from a place of empathy, which is the better move, not like respond like a robot. And so I really loved that part.
I think that this is like I don't know, there's probably a name for it, but I think this is like a kind of a negotiation jujitsu move, which is that I think a lot of creators have a tendency to unconsciously condescend sometimes. When they're in a conversation with a brand, it would be like, why are you doing that? That's stupid.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like that makes no sense. Like here's why I'm the expert. Sometimes actually, especially if some people who have large audiences I can say this because I've interacted with a lot of these people, can be a bit of like kind of a diva, like I'm hot stuff. Like you're lucky to work with me.
Why do I need to sell you?
Yeah. Why do I need to sell your thing? Like you sell me, this type of thing. But you really do sometimes need to, you may be the very first person that ever said something like this to the brand.
Right.
Of like, here's why that actually needs to make. The other thing too is I love drawing parallels to what the brand is currently doing. Yeah. So like if the brand is saying something, not this, but like saying something like, would you ever just put a single piece of creative into Facebook ads?
Right.
And just bank all your budget just on that creative?
Right.
No, you wouldn't do that. You need to have 10 different videos with different hooks, different calls to action, see which ones does best, and then allocate all the spend to that.
Right.
A lot of brands understand that.
Yeah.
And so you can actually use that example and be like, here, it's the same idea when doing organic content.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like drawing on your own experience, the better way to say what I opened with is like, hey, I've worked with a lot of brands, and in my experience, if we have done one mid-roll, that didn't land as well as if we did 6. And I wouldn't want you to waste your money on one when I know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's great.
Yeah.
All right, you're up.
All right.
Last one, let's go.
Oh, we got that one already. Yeah.
Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Okay, here we go.
We've never paid that much before. I totally understand that you've probably had set budgets and you've worked with other creators. One of the things that I really try to focus on is understanding your goals, what outcomes are, and I'm not just creating content for you. My job is to make your job easier. And in order for me to do that, I think we need a bit of a longer engagement where we work together more. We can meet a couple of times to see how the initial content is doing and make adjustments. And that allows me to partner and work more closely with you to really make this campaign a win. My goal is to help you achieve your goals.
Boom. Dude, that was very succinct.
Thank you.
Love
Thank
the
you
brevity
very
on
much.
that one.
Thank you.
All right. Tell me, give me a self-audit here. How do you think you did?
I mean, I think I did pretty good on this one. And yeah, it's because
you've been asked this before, haven't you? We've been
asked this. Yeah. And the tough part is like the brand is not saying that to be like, you're not worth it. Imagine walking into a pizza place and saying, our pizza is $10 a slice, and you're used to paying $2 a slice, right? You'd be like, why is your pizza so expensive? And that's kind of what you're answering here. And unfortunately, a lot of creators do undervalue themselves, but then a lot of creators, and I say this all the time to our coaching clients, like, we are not a commodity, we are a partner. And so that's really the answer that I try to give when I hear something like that, is that you're not buying a YouTube video from me. You are essentially hiring me to understand you and your goals and create content to help you achieve them.
I think also the underlying question with this statement is we feel like we might not get a return on our investment if we pay you this much.
Yeah.
So rather than it being like we're trying to insult you, like we don't want to pay that much, it's like we don't think we're going to get the level of engagement or awareness, the level of sales that we need. And so oftentimes I think a helpful question here is like, I would love to learn a little bit more about how you're measuring success.
Yeah.
Like how are you determining whether a a partnership is actually a win for you if you haven't talked about that in the conversation, because that really is what they're thinking when they're saying something like that. And so you may uncover certain things that all of a sudden the math makes sense. All of a sudden they get a eureka that they're like, oh, well, if you know, for example, if you're not, if they have never gotten the rights to repurpose the content from a partner before, and you pull that thread during the conversation, oh, great to, that actually is something that in my past partnerships with brands, they have found that to be a hugely valuable reason to collaborate, because unlike, other partnerships you may have done in the past, being able to put the asset on your website, use it for paid advertising, use it in your trade show booth, on the video thing. Now it starts to make sense in the brand's mind of like, oh, okay, even though we've never paid that much before, we're getting all these other things that we don't usually get.
Yeah, and this is great too, because again, they are probably not the last stop in this negotiation. They're saying, I'm going to have to justify spending this money to my boss, right? And so I think that's a really great point. Plus, asking them because okay, we always try to find out the goal, right? And it's the ARC framework, right? Awareness, repurposing, conversions. A lot of brands will say awareness, and they secretly also think conversions.
Totally.
Right. And so asking it like that, we'll say well, we do need to sell this many. Right. And so that helps you reframe and reset the conversation.
I think also, a lot of creators don't realize that the person they're talking to is not the decision maker.
Right.
And so what they're also might be saying by that is my boss is never going to go for this.
Right.
And so sometimes what I've done is I'd be like, hey, I'm happy. Is there anyone else on your team where it would be helpful for us to all actually talk? Maybe schedule another call with your boss, or if it's an agency, with the client or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, that's so helpful, because then they can hear it straight from your mouth.
Yeah, right.
Rather than them putting their neck out. Them putting their neck out and being like, here's why we should pay this person. It's not on them.
Right.
Right. And I think that, again, it's all human issues. Yeah. Sometimes the person, they don't know you. They don't want to stick their neck out for you. They want to get a raise. If it blows up in your contact's face, they don't want to look bad. They don't want to lose out on their promotion. Right. And so figuring out ways in which you can kind of insulate or protect them from any sort of exposure internally can maybe get the deal across the finish line.
Yeah. Love that.
So if this type of role play was fun to you, and you want to be around a group of creators who are all doing these crazy negotiations with brands, make sure to join us in our sponsorship coaching program, Wizards Guild. Joe is our lead coach in there. And so you can go to wizardsguild.com or click the link in the description box, and we'll see you next time. Peace.